Cheerio.
Spent more than 5 hours in traffic jams. For her, almost £50 down the drain.
There's people in their cars, getting out of them, leaving on the side of the road, and it was just chaos, absolute chaos. So, it's horrible.
Get out of the way!
For fans leaving Knebworth, traffic gridlock.
The concert was fantastic, but the organisation is useless, absolutely hopeless. It's midnight now, the concert finished at 10:20. We've just been sat here doing nothing all this time.
Inside there, it was absolutely chocker. There's people from front to back. You cannot move left or right, either way that you want to go.
Someone who was parked near to us walked up to a police officer and said, if you let one more bus go through again, I'm going to lie in front of the next one, so it'll have to go over me if he wants to get out. So it's just an absolute nightmare.
Joyce Gardner's father's funeral was delayed by the road chaos.
My brother didn't make it to my dad's funeral. He left Cornwall, and of course there was traffic on there, and then when he tried to get to here, he got stuck in traffic and broke down, so he just didn't make the funeral at all.
As the big clear-up got underway at Knebworth, Hertfordshire police said there had been no major incidents and just 16 arrests over the 3 days. For the vast majority, it had been a safe and enjoyable event.
There were issues on Friday, most of which were actually outside our control, but certainly a number of factors came together, including the fact that it was a working day in the normal rush hour traffic, people turning up without tickets, people leaving late, having been at work, and the rain didn't help those decisions, and altogether it formed a bottleneck developed which the road networks purely couldn't deal with.
Traffic problems aside, Robbie Williams proved the ultimate showman, the biggest draw in Britain. Kim Riley, BBC Look East, Knebworth.
Henry Lytton-Cobbold is one of the organisers. He's at Knebworth now. Do you think people got it wrong in how many people the site could actually handle?
No, the site can handle 120,000 people. We've done so many times before. This is the 30th year we've been doing these sorts of shows, so the site can handle that number of people.
Why did they have so many problems on Friday night and Saturday morning then?
Well, what was different, what's unprecedented about this show is adding the third night. We felt that Robbie deserved the chance to break the record, and so by adding the third day, the Friday, we were doing something that had never been done before. And when you're doing something that's never been done before, it doesn't matter how much planning goes into it, and a lot of planning went into this, there's going to be a hitch. You don't get a dress rehearsal, and so all I can say is that we don't like people to be disappointed. But I was there and I saw that the vast majority had the time of their lives. I mean, it's been a fantastic weekend for us generally.
A lot of people, though, found it very difficult to get out of the car park. They were stuck there for a very long time. A lot of people struggled to get in, and I've also spoken to people who said it was so crowded that they actually left before Robbie Williams came on stage. So there was something wrong.
Well, no, I think people weren't quite aware of the scale of the event that they were coming to. I mean, here Robbie invited his fans to come and be a part of something that was not just a simple concert. This is making history here that we're doing. This is more than coming to hear Robbie sing. This is the biggest British music event ever. And when you're a part of that, and when you tell your grandchildren about that in the future, you have to accept that it requires extra patience. I would happily sit through hours of traffic jam to see what I saw on Sunday night, and I know that the vast majority of the people who were here on the weekend agree with me on that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just in one quick word, are you going to have that many people next time you have a festival?
Well, as I said, like we've been doing since 1974, we're the biggest and the best venue in the country, and we're ready for artists of Robbie's
so that's yes, Mr. Cobbold. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
I hope so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
An investigation has started into why a Soviet-built aircraft had to make an emergency landing at Duxford over the weekend. Less than a month ago, 2 pilots were killed when an old naval plane crashed during an air show.
This is the second L-39 Albatross jet to crash at Duxford in just over a year. But on this occasion, thanks to the skill of the pilot who managed a successful emergency landing in a field at Ickleton, there were no injuries. But in June 2002, a pilot died when the aircraft he was flying crashed onto the nearby M11. But at this stage, there seems to be no connection between that and the total engine failure experienced by pilot Peter Jackson at the weekend.
The report into the one that went into the motorway made some recommendations about the airplane, but they bear no relation to to what happened on this occasion, and an engine failure, I'm afraid, can happen to any aeroplane.
The Albatross was the only one of its kind based at Duxford and even featured in the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies. Since the 1980s, over 2,000 of these aircraft have been sold to other air forces and private collectors around the world. They're available for around £200,000. That's far less than the British equivalent of a training aircraft.
They were very successful, these in training service in Warsaw Pact countries. Very reliable, very robust, and all of those, the robustness certainly showed.
As flying continues at Duxford, investigators are already looking at why this well-regarded aircraft suffered such disastrous engine failure. Sarah Yates, Look East, Duxford.
5 men from Essex have appeared in court charged with a number of assaults on a fellow building site worker. The claim is it was racially motivated. Chokri Lamadi, a Muslim from Tunisia, was working with the men in Bedford. He claims the abuse became worse after September the 11th.
A one-time chapel, now a nightclub. While work was being done on this conversion, another unholy mission was underway in America. Chokri Lamadi claims it was a backlash against the shocking events of September the 11th, 2001, which led to a series of attacks on him by fellow workers. He alleges that David Elm, seen here in the black, and Brad Q dragged him from behind and forced his face to the floor, that brothers Andrew and Anthony Alt held his feet, while Daniel Griffiths hacked off his ponytail 9 inches of hair with a Stanley knife, the first of at least 3 assaults.
Mr. Lamadi gave his evidence from behind a screen, shielded from the sight of the men he's accused of attacking him. Aided by a translator, his evidence was at times confused and confusing, even at odds with the statement he originally made to the police. The defence say that he's simply making it up in the hope of making some money in compensation.
On trial at Bedford magistrates today, building site behaviour. The court has heard about swearing, wolf whistling and mooning. The question, was it banter and horseplay or racial abuse and bullying? The court will decide over the course of the next 4 days. Nikki Jenkins, BBC Look East in Bedford.
Stay with us for the latest on how the heat is affecting our train services, plus James Blatch with something rather quicker.
Yes, it's been a big weekend for a very, very big car. This is Thunderbolt. There's a Spitfire engine in there. There's the man who built it in there. And at the weekend, some British records, well, they were pretty well shattered. Find out how it all went after more news where you live.
An illegal rave this weekend may have damaged wildlife at a forest in Suffolk. Up to 500 people were at the event at North Stowe near Bury St Edmunds. The police made a number of arrests.
Securing the gates again. For the 8th time this summer, the Forestry Commission are left with the aftermath of all-night drinking, music and raving. The rubbish may have been cleaned up, but the potential risks are worrying.
The hazard is really twofold. You've got the fires on one hand. Late at night they'll have the campfires, and on this particular site that they chose there are a number of young trees. Now these are fairly easily caught ablaze in this type of weather, and you can have a fairly dramatic environmental effect with what takes place after that. Secondly, you've got all the rubbish and debris, and of course with these raves comes the drugs, and you've got an environmental and public hazard with those, and the clear up is obviously expensive as well.
And it's not just about the mess, it's the long-term damage to the environment they're concerned about. Up to 100 cars parked on sensitive areas, home to a rare butterfly. 2 very rare species of birds, including the nightjar, also lay their eggs in this short grass, one of only a few sites in the country where they've been spotted. It may look completely harmless now, but the potential damage from this campfire could have been devastating for the whole area. The East Anglia Forestry Commission say they're working closely with Suffolk Police to prevent a 9th rave. They also say they intend doing all they possibly can to prevent this from becoming a popular rave location. Rosemary Doherty, BBC Look East, Suffolk.
40 asylum seekers have ended their hunger strike at the Oakington Reception Centre in Cambridgeshire. They started refusing food last Wednesday in protest at the length of time it was taking to process their applications for asylum. Accident investigators have spent the day trying to find out how a diver from Norfolk died on Saturday. 48-year-old Anne Corstafine was crushed under a trailer as it pulled up a dive boat up the slipway at Munsley. She was a member of the West Norfolk Sub-Aqua Club.
Now, anybody who knows Pin Mill in Suffolk will know about the wrecks. They've been rotting in the water for decades. But the question at Pin Mill is this: when is an old bolt an eyesore, and when does it add character?
Pin Mill. Peaceful, unspoilt, picturesque. At the turn of the century there were just a handful of boats here. Now there are too many to count. But by the end of the week there'll be one less. This is the Maid of Connaught. She was built by hand over 100 years ago, but she's been here, a wreck, for at least 30 years. Now there's a project to tidy up the area.
I meet people, the first they say, oh dear, sitting here, what a mess that looks, isn't it a shame, isn't it? And that, I feel, is a bit of a pity, because it does give that impression.
But not everyone agrees. Some who wouldn't appear on camera told me the hulks make Pin Mill. They say the wrecks give the place its unique atmosphere. Its magic is that it isn't sanitised like other marinas. They know they're fighting a losing battle.
It's dangerous for anybody to be involved with. We've got to actually clear it because people use this hard for launching boats, and holidaymakers come down here.
In 6 days, the Maid of Connaught will be gone. It's costing £9,000 to take her away. The plan is to remove 4 other hulks before October. The council believes this is regeneration. Some locals claim it's desecration. Today, it began. Rachel Dane, BBC Look East, Pin Mill in Suffolk.
It was a disappointing weekend for our region at the German Grand Prix. The Norfolk driver Ralph Furman's race ended when he crashed his Jordan at the first corner. Northampton driver Justin Wilson's Jaguar was also damaged in the chaos. A gearbox problem later forced Wilson to retire after just 6 laps.
The creative juices have been flowing in Norwich today, with young people trying out a new art form. It involves music, videos and computers, and it's a pilot for a new series of BBC workshops.
You've heard of DJs, now it's time to meet the VJs.
VJing is essentially live video performance. It can be compared to DJing, I suppose, where DJs use CDs, vinyl, they mix music. We use video, and what we're doing today down at the forum is allowing people to have a go.
You can come and be creative instead of just hanging around on the streets just messing around. You can do something that's worthwhile.
I enjoy making the clips myself, and I really enjoy visual media, and I'm hoping to do visual media at university.
VJing is already taking off in clubs and at music events. This group were doing their stuff at the weekend with a performance at the Eastern Sun Fair Festival in Norwich. The idea to get young people involved has come from a new BBC project called Blast.
Blast is basically about getting young people involved in the arts and showcasing talent from young people who've made anything from, it can be dance, drama, art, anything really to do with the arts.
A series of 3-day workshops in the art of VJing are running at the forum throughout August. As the new home of the BBC in Norwich, it's set to be the backdrop to even more creative courses in the coming months. Jo Kent, BBC Look East, Norwich.
And if you want to know more, you can go to bbc.co.uk/Norfolk, and then you click on Blast.
A group of teenagers from Norwich have the daunting task of cooking lunch for television chef Delia Smith tomorrow. After a week of training at a special summer school, the children have the use of Norwich City's kitchens for 3 hours. Then they have to serve up a top-class meal to Delia and 50 parents and guests.
You're watching Look East from the BBC. Coming up, the heat is on, and it means more misery for commuters.
Soon, Look East will be moving home after being in the same building all its life.
And most of mine.
That's true. All through the summer, we're looking back at the highs and the lows of BBC East.
Tonight, John Cranston remembers the early years and the first programmes broadcast from this building.
In the late 50s, there wasn't a lot on the telly in the eastern counties, just the one channel, and half the time it was stuff like this. One correspondent to the Eastern Daily Press wanted a local news service, demanding,
"Why is it that East Anglia is still left out in the cold so far as television is concerned?"
So imagine the unbridled excitement when the region's first local TV service arrived here at St Catherine's House in October 1959, and the newsreaders moved in.
Well, Geoffrey, how have the rehearsals been going?
Oh, well, they've been pretty tough, but I've managed to survive.
Geoffrey Harvey was a teacher at a public school. There was also Ralph Tuck. Trouble is, he wasn't quite so public school.
And to those of you who've especially requested to hear again, they're all playing dummies in the bar.
Well, the BBC was a bit starchy in those days. I mean, regional accents were out. They had a written complaint in, and so it was all hell let loose. And so they removed him because of his Norfolk accent.
The programme Ralph Tuck was removed from was a nightly 10-minute bulletin with pictures.
The rivers of East Anglia just weren't able to get all the rain away. Slow, placid rivers became rushing torrents, swamping nearby meadows and marshes. The store was well and truly opened by Mr. Paistray. The chief scout made an extensive tour of the jamboree, and there was plenty of work going on for him to see. She was escorted by Lord Leicester, the father of the 25-year-old bride. For the occasion, the Queen Mother wore a powder blue dress and a loose coat. A parade of young seamen also greeted the Admiral of the Fleet, Lord Mountbatten of Burma, at the Royal Hospital School at Holbrook, near Ipswich.
In 1962, the local news was extended to 20 minutes a night. It became East Anglia at 6:10. It included, for the first time, a magazine section, with contributions by local performers like Alan Smethurst, the singing postman.
Molly Wimbley, she smokes like a chimney, but she's my little nicotine gal.
Oh, and Ralph Tuck, well, he was reinstated by popular demand and went on to become the singing postman's record producer. Next week, the arrival of Look East, and eventually, the glories of colour.
As you may have heard,
and that's where you come in.
No, yes. Oh, I hope not. Now, the heat wave has started, and guess what? There's already trouble on the trains. There have been cancellations and delays this afternoon, and there could be more tomorrow. Andrew Sinclair has been finding... You're on heat watch, Andrew, aren't you? How bad has it been?
It's been quite bad, Stuart, and it's not over yet. The rail companies are really feeling the heat at the moment. I'm told that on one track in this region today, on the track itself, they recorded a temperature of 50 Celsius. That's 122 Fahrenheit. And so that's why Network Rail have had to impose speed restrictions. This is where they've been today. 60 miles an hour on the routes out of London, 80 through Norfolk and Suffolk. Bear in mind the speed on many of those tracks is normally 100 miles an hour. And so that's leading to delays. No more than 10 minutes on the London to Norwich line, but the West Coast line has been badly affected. I think we can show you Northampton Station a short while ago. There it is, where passengers have been facing delays of up to an hour. Quite a few cancellations to and Silverlink services. And of course, the West Coast line, very popular with commuters, and those problems will continue into the evening. There have been similar problems too down the line at Milton Keynes and Bletchley.
And some lines closed altogether?
Yes, that's right. 2 have been closed this afternoon, and they remain closed this evening. Central cancelled all their services between Ely and Stansted this afternoon. Buses were laid on instead, and Silverlink decided to close the Bedford to Bletchley line. I think we can show pictures of that line. The engineers are out there in the distance checking the track temperature. They were trying to run the service at a 20-mile-an-hour service, but it was just becoming too impractical for them, so they've closed it down completely. They hope it'll open tomorrow, but they can't be sure.
This isn't going to get any better for the next couple of days, is it?
No, and perhaps not even for the next couple of weeks. As long as we have these high temperatures, we can expect speed restrictions and we can expect delays through the afternoon and through every single evening. Network Rail is saying that the majority of passengers are experiencing very few delays, and they hope it doesn't get any worse.
Andrew, thank you very much. What we need is some nice cool weather, which we're not going to get, are we?
We're not.
No.
No. I think the heat wave's certainly set to continue right through this week. We are actually looking at a little area of weather down to the southwest of Britain at the moment. You can see there's some thundery showers down there. That's going to drift sort of northwards, and it might just clip the west of our area for parts of tomorrow. Certainly no such problems for the end of today though, just a sunny end to the day and a dry night as well. Long clear spells for most of the time, a very gentle east to southeasterly breeze, so like last night I think it will turn rather misty and murky. Late on in the night though, some of that cloud we were looking at in the southwest might just flick the west of our area come the morning. Now temperatures tonight, they're the lowest one, so it's going to be a really mild and muggy night I'm afraid. 17 is 63 degrees Fahrenheit. We start tomorrow though, much as we did this morning, a little bit of early mistiness. That though will quickly clear away. Might just linger around one or two coasts as it did today, but in most places certainly seeing the sun get to work quite readily. And as the sun gets to work, well, so the temperatures are going to rise. With again mainly east to southeasterly breezes, we're going to see those temperatures up to 24 or 25 in inland parts as early as lunchtime. So if we start in the west in the afternoon, I think there will be a little bit more cloud than today, and I suppose an outside chance of catching a shower in the west, but that's all it is. I think a very small risk indeed. The wind's very light from the east or the southeast, and there are the temperatures tomorrow, 31 Celsius possible, that's 88 Fahrenheit. Now in the east, this really is the place to be, I think. Just as much sunshine as today, particularly around the coast, and here there will be that lovely refreshing onshore breeze coming into eastern coastal areas, just pegging the temperatures back a little bit, but to inland certainly hot and humid once again, 29 Celsius here. So let's look at the 5-day forecast. Tomorrow we've seen perhaps a little bit more cloud, particularly in the west of the region, but still hot and humid. Wednesday, a little bit of a mixed start with some early morning mist and low cloud, but once that's gone, temperatures rise to similar levels again. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see 32 Celsius, which is 90 Fahrenheit. The wind's pretty light, so not too much relief there. As for the rest of the week, well, high pressure well and truly in command, so it stays fine and dry. Lots and lots of sunshine by day. Temperatures hardly varying at all, still hot and humid. The coast is the place to head for, if only we weren't working.
I know.
Hard life, Ivor, thank you.
Now, a star was born at the weekend. She broke 10 British records and is likely to rewrite the history books in the future.
She can trace her ancestors back to the 20s when pretty young things would dance the night away to the sounds of the Charleston. But this is a very modern girl with something very special under the bonnet.
The lair of the beast. In this Bedfordshire workshop, a monster has been created, and its name is Thunderbolt. The car has been painstakingly built by Graham Moss using a vintage Bentley chassis, but it's what's underneath the aluminium body that makes this lion roar. The power comes from a 27-litre Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the type normally used to power Spitfires. At 6 miles to the gallon, it's hardly economical, but then this car was built for a different purpose. Over the weekend, in its first official timed runs, Thunderbolt captured 10 British speed records. Some had stood for over 70 years.
Just over the moon. I just can't believe that I managed to pull it off. I have to pinch myself, in all honesty. I never dreamt the car would be as capable as it has been. I think I've just been extremely lucky.
Graham knows a thing or two about Bentleys. He restores them for the very wealthy few. The business is a labour of love started by his father 40 years ago.
Old age creeps up on us all, and I'm afraid my son has to do the work nowadays. I have tremendous interest in what he's doing, and they do occasionally ask me for advice, but not very often now.
Nothing about Bentleys is cheap. A restored car will set you back a couple of £100,000. And Graham's aim to break the world 24-hour endurance speed record will require more of the readies. But there's no doubting he now has the beast for the job. James Blatch, BBC Look East, Bedfordshire.
6 miles to the gallon. I was trying to work out how much it would cost me to come to work. More than I get paid, I should have wondered.
Probably. Beautiful looking car.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah. Lovely noise too. Yeah. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Goodbye.
Welcome back. Speed limits have been introduced on some of the busiest railway lines in Britain because of the heat wave. Network Rail says it's worried the tracks could buckle in the heat. Forecasters are predicting we could see record temperatures by the middle of this week. A national emergency has been declared in Portugal after the heat there fanned forest fires. Strong winds and record temperatures are fueling more than 70 blazes. 9 people have died and thousands of acres of forest have been destroyed. A task force of peacekeeping troops has arrived in the West African state of Liberia. The troops will try to end the fighting and restore order to the country. So far, more than 100,000 people have been killed in the civil war between government and rebel forces. Millions have been forced to leave their homes, pushing the country to the brink of a humanitarian crisis. 9 men are being questioned tonight about the discovery of a suspected terrorist training camp in the Irish Republic. Forensics experts are searching the area where guns and ammunition were found close to the town of Clonmel in the southeast of Ireland. There's a roundup of all the day's news from around the world on BBC 4 at 8 o'clock. We're back tomorrow at 6. See you then. Bye-bye.
In his day, there were none better. Jackie Milburn and Newcastle. He was always a hero of mine. He used to love it.
Everybody loved him, Jackie Milburn, wore Jackie way high.
He was such a lovely guy, and he would do anything to help anybody, and that just made him even more special.
For a second he hesitates, but he's not offside, and now all by himself Milburn streaks through to put Newcastle ahead.
Good evening. The beach, I think, is the place to be to escape the stifling heat in the coming few days. And the sea, not that cold either at the moment, nearly as warm as it gets. 16 or 17 if you fancy taking a dip, and that should temper the feel of 22 around the coast with those refreshing sea breezes compared with, well, 32 to 35 in the conurbations of England and Wales tomorrow. A little warmer for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but be it 22 or 32, the temperature really has no effect on the strength of the sun. It will be strong if you're out for any length of time tomorrow. And the pollutant levels are rising. They've been high across England and Wales today, but higher across Northern Ireland and southern Scotland tomorrow. Now, there could just be 1 or 2 scattered storms around through the evening and overnight, drifting northwards through the west of England into Wales, and then by the morning into the northwest of England, Northern Ireland, and pushing northwards into southern Scotland tomorrow. Say just 1 or 2 torrential downpours from any, though it'll be a largely dry day with hazy sunshine. Just the odd shower even sparked off in eastern England late on. And a little bit more in the way of coastal fog, I think, around the coast of Devon, Cornwall and Pembroke late in the day, just spoiling the day really here late on. As I say, hot again on Wednesday, just 1 or 2 showers left in eastern areas, but the sunshine returning by a little bit of sea fog around the Irish seacoast, both Wednesday and Thursday. I think we peak temperature-wise Wednesday into Thursday, and then they start to ease down a little, but they still stay in the low 30s in the south and the high 20s in the north, and it must be stressed that the humidity will make it very uncomfortable in the coming few nights as well as the days. Bye-bye.